Alright, what up guys? It's me, and welcome to another episode of Squid Game in Unity. Now this will be episode 6, which means we are halfway through the series in about, I don't know, a year and a half after I came up with the idea of this. Life just has its way of keeping me busy, so apologies that it is taking so long. But the game we're going to be making today is Glass Bridge. So, for those who don't know what Squid Game is, Squid Game was a series made by Netflix in 2021 where contestants compete in a series of games for a big money grand prize. Now, like I just said before, the game we're playing is Glass Bridge, so basically players are confronted with two seemingly identical mid-air catwalks. There are 18 parallel glass stepping stones along the two catwalks. On one side, the stepping stone will be tempered glass, which can hold the weight of 2 people, and on the other, normal breakable glass. The players have no idea which tiles throughout the field are tempered and which are normal. To win, players must correctly choose and hop from each tempered glass tile to the next and get to the other side of the catwalk. Anyone who chooses incorrectly falls to their death, and the runtime for this game is 16 minutes. So, this is just a complete warning that this game is not being published. This is just for fun. Netflix, please don't come at me. Yeah, I'm just doing this for fun because I find game development oddly fun. And yeah. With that being said, for those who are new to the series, the way this is going to work is I'm going to go through and make a rough draft of the game. So it's not going to look pretty, it's not really going to have many colors, but it will work. And then after that, I'll walk you through sort of how the rough draft works, and then I'll go through and make it look like an actual polished game, and then I'll demonstrate the game, and yeah, that's the way this works. So without further ado, let's hop over to Unity so we can get into making this rough draft. So, if I click play here, we're going to hop over to Glass Bridge, and I will touch back with you guys once we have a working rough draft. Alright guys, what's up? I am back with a rough draft of the Glass Bridge. Now when I say rough, it is very rough. There is some stuff I need to do in the final draft, but without further ado, let's get to it. So if we come over here to Unity, when I hit play, this pops up. It's nothing crazy, just essentially, we have the Glass Bridge. It's about 8 tiles long. I think the one in Squid Game was longer. Like the one in Squid Game was longer, but we have a deaths count, we have a left button, and we have a right button. When we click left, we jump left. If it happens to be one of the tiles, it disappears, we fall, and then we respawn, and the death counter goes up. So it's kind of a little bit of luck and a little bit of memory as well. Okay. Left, right, and then we win. It pops up that little console message. It'll actually show something a little bit better looking for the rough draft. But yeah, or sorry, for the final draft. But yeah, that is what this rough draft does. It took me about an hour. Granted, I was trying to talk and do a couple other things at the same time, so it might not have been all focused, but we got there. So that being said, I'm going to stop the demo from playing, and I'm going to walk you through some of these scripts. Okay. I'm increasing the zoom a little bit so that it's easier for you guys to see. So this is the game manager. It'll probably have a couple more things within the final draft, but in the rough draft, we have the instance, which is right here. We then have the death count, which is just an integer variable, and then we have our field for the text object for the death text. At start, we just define the instance as this, and then for update, we are just updating death text with the death count. Pretty simple game manager, all things considered. So here we have the camera follow script. We have a transform that is our target, so that would be, in our case, the player. We then have an offset, and we have a smooth speed, which I will be adjusting because right now it is not all that smooth. We are using late update, which updates after the movement has happened. And then we also have, and then within that late update, we are defining the desired position as the target position plus the offset. And we're transforming the direction in the direction of the offset. Then we are setting the position to vector3.lerp of our current position, which is just transform.position, the desired position, and then smooth speed times time.delta time. That's basically just how smooth the movement is. I'll adjust that in the final draft. And then lastly, we have transform.lookAt our position, and then vector3.up, which basically means we're just having it look at the player. So that is the camera follow script. Now we're going into the player script, which is where this gets interesting. So we have the starting Z position, we have the left position of the center of the left platform, and because I did this along the axis, because I did it along the Z axis, the right position is quite literally just the negative of the X position, so we only need one variable here. We then have a field for current row, which we can see from the editor, and then we have our starting position for when we fall to our doom. We don't do anything in start, we don't do anything in update. We then have the left button click, which sets our current position to the left X, a Y value of 2.73, and then our starting Z position plus 2 times the current row. And then after we do that, we increase the current row. So basically, what I did was I had a set increment of how separate or how far apart the platforms were going to be, which makes it really easy from the scripting perspective of all you have to do is increment by 2. Now, I could have done this a couple ways. I chose to do it this way. I could have had a position that constantly updates, which I would have done if I was starting, if when I was respawning from that specific panel, but I'm not. I'm having them start back at the start to make it a little bit of a game of memory as well. And yeah, so because of that, we did it this way. The right button click is the same thing, except it's just negative left X. Again, that's the beauty of doing something on the axis, is you can just flip the sign and it's great. And then we have our collision handling. So on collision enter is how Unity handles basically all collisions, whether it's, on collision enter it handles two collisions between, or it handles a collision between two objects. Good grief, that took way longer than it should have been. We're going and we're checking if the game object tag is equal to the glass panel, or is equal to glass panel, not the glass panel. If it is, we are then defining the panel as the component of glass panel, and we'll get to that script next. We are then checking if the panel is safe. And if it is not safe, which is really what we're checking, we are destroying the game object. Then we are checking if the collision game object's tag is respawn. And if it is, we are setting the transform.position to our spawn position, which is all the way back at the start. We're resetting current row to be 0. And then we are going into the game manager and we are increasing that death count. And then lastly, we check to see if the collision's game object's tag is end platform glass bridge. And if it is, we send win to the console, which will also be through the game manager of setting like a win screen and play again to be true. So that is the player script. We have 2 more scripts. This one is really, really simple, and actually I'm going to make it even more simple and get rid of that. Right now we have a class called glass panel, and we have 2... Actually, I don't even need row. That's awesome. I can literally make this like a 2-line class. We have a class called glass panel, and within that class we are checking to see if, or within that class we have a variable called isSafe. And where that gets assigned is this class called a panel pair. So we have 8 rows, and which means we have 8 pairs of panels. Now, at this point I haven't sped up the rough draft creation video to know if it's possible to see or not, but as I was going through and testing this, it became pretty apparent that because originally I was assigning it randomly within the panel, we ended up in this kind of terrible situation where both the left and the right were not safe and would disappear, and then you can't move on, and that is what you call an edge case that definitely needs to be considered. The way I decided to handle that was A, ask my good friend Claude Code, more on that in a second, and B, handle it in pairs. So we have the left panel and the right panel. We're assigning the left a value of 0 or 1, or a value of true or false, based off of a random range that is either 0 or 1. So true would be 0, false would be 1. We're setting isSafe to that variable, and then we are setting the right panel's isSafe to the opposite of that variable, which handles that edge case, and it means that whatever the left panel is, the right panel cannot be the same. So if the left panel is safe, that means the right panel is not safe. If the left panel is not safe, that means the right panel is safe. And that ensures that there is a path across. There is never something where you can go both ways, or you can go 0 ways. That was not a thing in the show. So staying true to that, we're keeping up with the show, we're staying true to it, and that's why I decided to handle it. Now, I do want to address for about a minute the use of AI in this. I have been using AI throughout this entire series. My stance on AI, at least in this context, is it is a problem if I am sitting there and going, I have this idea, do this for me. Because it would very clearly be AI, and it would very clearly not be my work, and that's not going to fly in academia or in the workforce, and I know that. I'm using Claude Code as a tool of, here, I have this current thing that I wrote, I need to do one more thing, how can I do that? And it'll tell me, and I'll learn from it. And generally I can bounce ideas off of it, and I'm also using it as a search engine of, hey, look up for me how I do this thing, or tell me how I do this thing. That's the same thing I would be plugging into Google if I got stuck. It's the same thing. I just wanted to touch on that because I know that's a really touchy subject right now. Anyways, that is our rough draft. I'm going to start work on a final draft, and I will talk to you guys when I have that final draft made. Alright, what up guys? It is the next day, and I am back with a final draft. I will admit I did use Claude Code for a lot of the styling things. I am not the best at UI and making things look nice, so it is nice for me to be able to sort of describe what I'm going for, and then Claude Code can teach me how to do that. But without further ado, let's get into the final draft. So, you can see we still have our death screen, and we have the left and right buttons. I replaced the cube with an avatar. If I go around, I apologize, my laptop's being a little bit laggy because I'm doing a lot of things on it at once. It's a little avatar of a Squid Game guy in the jumpsuit. And then I also added a little bit of fog. Here, let me make it bigger. I also added a little bit of fog as well, just to make it that little bit more ominous that you see in the game. And then On top of that, I added some mechanics as well. I'm going to attempt to walk through the scripts. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, so here, if you're playing, you hit the right button, you fall a little bit farther, and then you spawn back. But we can go left, and if you notice, the guy jumps now. It's a very clear arc versus just instantly teleporting. Instantly teleporting worked for a first draft, but for a final draft, you very much want something a little bit more polished movement-wise. So we can keep going, and as you see, that fog dissipates as we go further. And I can keep guessing wrong. Jeez, is it just a whole bunch of lefts? Nope. And then we have a win screen that shows you survived. Deaths, 5, you barely made it. And then we have a play again button that when you click it, starts you over. So that is now a fully functioning game. I'm going to attempt to walk you through how the code for this works and the changes that I made. So starting in here, no changes in the Glassbridge game manager, no changes in the camera follow. There were a couple changes in here, and I'm actually gonna format this a little bit just to make it easier. We still have our regular starting variables, nothing on start, nothing on update, but we now have a bool called isMoving, which will prevent like double button clicks as we're jumping, since we now have a jump motion. And within the button clicks, it's the same for left and right, just swapped X values. It's if isMoving, then return, so if it's moving, do nothing. We have the target, and then we start a coroutine of moving to the panel, and we pass our target in there, and then we increase current row. And here I'll increase the size again, make it easier for you guys to see. And then here is our IE enumerator of move to panel with that target. So we're setting isMoving to true. We're setting the start position as vector3, we're setting the start position, which is a vector3. And we're setting it to the current transform.position. We're setting duration at 0.3 seconds. And then we have our time of 0. So while t is less than 1, we are adding time.delta time over duration to t. We are saying float arc is equal to the sine of t times pi times 0.8, which is our jump height. And without going into too much trigonometry, sine basically gives you this, it gives you the y value of the arc, cosine is the x value. If we didn't care about height and just wanted to go a certain distance with an arc, we could go cosine, but we're going sine for this because we do care about the height. Then we are setting the position to vector3.lerp of start, the target, and t, plus vector3.up times the arc, which basically just tells it how much to go up by. Then we're setting transform.position to target, and then we are saying it's not moving. And then the only other thing that I changed in this script was at the end of the games, when you hit the end platform, instead of printing win out to the console, I'm not printing anything, I'm going into the windscreen object and setting it to show windscreen with the value of the death count. Speaking of windscreen, here's the windscreen script. Claude does all of its styling by code, which is actually really interesting to learn. Say what you want about AI, but it's really cool sort of seeing how it's done script-wise, because think about the practical implications of that, right? If you have 200 objects, you can just style it in a script when you clone it, or you can style it in the prefab. Either way, it means you don't have to do it on every single one, and you can also dynamically adjust it and have other things in the scene adjust the script. It's pretty cool. So we're defining our elements. So we have the panel itself, we have the text that says you win, or you survived in this case. We have the death summary text, we then have the play it again button, and we have the background, or also the image component of the panel. We're then defining our pink color, and then we go to start, where we set active to false, and we style the windscreen. Now here's where most of this happens. So we're setting the panel background color to a new color that is dark and pretty semi-transparent. We're then styling the win text. We're setting it to you survived, we're setting the color to pink, the style to bold, and the font size to 52. I had already done that in the editor, so it's just going through and doing that again. We're then on the play again button, setting normal color to pink, or to our squid pink. We're setting the pressed color to a slightly darker pink. Then we're setting highlighted, selected, and disabled all to that squid pink. And then play again button, we're setting to, or play again button dot colors equals color. Or I guess what we're doing is we're setting a game object, or not a game object, we are setting a color block of colors, and then we're applying that to our play again button. And then the text of button text, I'm actually gonna take this down to like 24 while I'm at it, because it was stretching a little bit. We then we're setting the button text to play again, we're setting it to white and to bold, and then we're setting the font size to 24. This is all stuff you can do within the editor. You can also do it within several lines of code. It's a personal choice. I had never seen it done like this, so it was pretty cool to me. And then in show windscreen with our deaths, we're setting the panel to true, and then between, if it's 0 deaths, we say flawless, not a single panel broken. If you have less than or equal to 3 deaths, we say lucky you, and then if it's more than 3, we say you barely made it. And then we set the font size to whatever. And then play again, we're having the scene manager load the active scene, which would be the one that we're currently in, which was a pretty cool way to do it that I hadn't thought of before. And our last new script, or we have our last new script is the button styler. We are defining the buttons, then we're defining the death counter, and then we have our 2 colors are normal and pressed. And then on start, we're saying style the buttons and style the death counter. For the button, we are again defining this color block, and we're setting all the colors. I'm not going to run through that. We're then setting the button colors to that color block, and then we're also setting the text to be white, bold, and a size of 28. For the death counter, we're setting the death background, and then we are also setting the text to be white, bold, and size 26. And then for update deaths, we're gradually shifting the text towards the pink as the death count increases. I don't think that's ever actually used, but it's a cool concept. And yeah, that is all of the styling changes scripting changes that happened in creating the final draft that you guys see right here. So guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, do all those things, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.